Hey everybody, it's been a long time and I apologize for being gone because I've been out in the world tracking. So we have the new SynthEyes, so that's great. I wanted to take this opportunity to show you all of the new features of SynthEyes. No, that's actually not what's going to happen. I actually want to go back to basics a little bit. And what could be more basic than just hitting the auto button? So I'm going to do that right now. And then I'm going to go to the network tracking basics, auto track, media, plates, auto track. I'm just going to leave all of this in its present state and hit OK. And then I'm going to sit back. I'm going to drink more coffee while SynthEyes up in the upper left-hand corner does some work. Cafe du Monde, but my D came off. That's sad. If you're in New Orleans, go to Cafe du Monde. They have great beignets. All right. Hey, and it's done. All right, so that's the end of the tutorial. No, that's not the end of the tutorial. Let's look at what we've done here. The shot auto-tracked, and if we look, we can just, actually, we'll just hit the play button here. You know what? It's playing a little fast. So I'm gonna go view normal speed. There we go. Okay, good. Hey, look, it's tracking and all of our markers seem to line up. Any second now, SynthEyes is going to bug me and say, hey, do you want to save the scene file? Oh, yeah, there it goes. Right on time. Why did it do that? I'll tell you after I save the scene file. So let's go in here, go to Auto Track, Project Files, SynthEyes. It wants to name it after the footage, and then I put an underscore version 01. Okay, now why did it bug me? Well, I have to go into the preferences. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, and I think that a tutorial about just the preferences in SynthEyes is in order. We can go down this list to File Save, and you'll see that Enable Autosave is set to yes. And minutes per autosave is set to 1. So after 1 minute of touching anything, SynthEyes starts the timer. You might not like some of the things that SynthEyes does, like, you know, where it sends you when you're like, I'm going to load some images, and you'll notice that SynthEyes sent me directly to my shows folder, where I keep all of the projects. You can see that here in the folder presets. So under images, it's set to volumes, Mercurade 1 shows. And I can go to batch output, and I've set most of these to that directory just because that is like the base folder for everything that I do. You should explore and check all of this out. I think we can move on though. All right, the shot's done. We tracked it. We auto-tracked it. Boom. Finished. No. Oh. Because if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you can see our error is kind of high. 1.697 pixels. That's not great. Let's go back to the beginning and let's just start over from scratch. So you don't have to just hit the auto button to start auto tracking. You can actually load your plate first and give SynthEyes a good starting place. So let's do that. I go File, New, Scene Changed, Save File, no. So let's go back to that folder, Media, Plates, Shot Auto Track, and just load the footage. And again, just hit OK. We're not going to change anything about that. Right here, you see Run Tracker Cleanup. So I'm going to turn that on before we hit the auto button. And now I'm going to hit auto and see what happens. And have some coffee. Okay, oh hey look, it's done already. And you'll notice that our error is lower. So instead of 1.697, I think, it's 1.138. So that's actually much lower. There's some spikes here in the histogram, in the error histogram, in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And those are during some pretty heavy motion blur. And right here. So that's also a big motion blur area. If you wanted to get the error lower, I'll show you some of the things I do. Let's go back and start a new scene again. And I'm going to show you this in the way that I would do it. All right, let's discuss a couple of other things. Because if we're going to dig into this a little deeper, we may as well dig in a lot deeper. Let's go into image pre-processing. It's called image pre-processing here, and it's called image preparation setup there. This, I think, should be named image preparation setup, just for consistency's sake. But if you hear me say image pre-processing, I'm talking about image preparation setup, and if you hear me say image preparation setup here, anyway. Okay. So let's go to levels. You'll see here there are lookup tables. This Cineon LUT is kind of baked in, and I think it just uses this standard Kodak Cineon LUT. What if you wanted to load your own LUT? So I'll hit open and go to Common, Project Files, LUT, Blackmagic Design. These are the LUTs that come with DaVinci Resolve. So if you download DaVinci Resolve and you go into the application, it's going to be different from Windows and the Mac, but you can find them. I've copied them here just to have them more handy. So what do I want? I want the Blackmagic 4K film to Rec 709. I'm just going to use their first one, not version 2 or version 3. I'm just going to use the first one. And hey, look, that's nice. But let's take it a step further. Let's go into the preset manager and make a new preset. And we'll call this one Rec 709. But I only want to save color and blur related. So I'm turning off resolution, lens, stabilization, and region of interest related. So that's Rec 709. I'm going to make a new preset. I'll call that one High-Con. I do this on nearly every shot. Same way, turn off everything except for color and blur related. Okay, that's High-Con. So I'm going to set this to map not set, and I'm going to drop the highlights kind of about there, and I'll gamma up. Get a little more contrast in there, and I'll bump the saturation a bit so that it looks, hey, that kind of looks a little bit like my Rec 709, a little bit. But the thing about the High-Con LUT is that I can't do things like soft clip the highlights, and I don't have that kind of control. I can't draw color curves or anything like that. I'm just pegging the high, the low, and the gamma. This is useful. I keep this one handy so that I can tweak these values when I'm doing different passes on an image for tracking. We're going to leave the Rec 709 on for now, though, and hit OK. So if I go back in here, you'll notice I now have these saved. When I hit OK up there, that's when it saved those. So there you go. I'm going to make one more, though, which I always make. And I'm going to call this one, new preset, Reset Color. And I'm going to turn off everything again. And hit OK. Turn this off. All of those values are now set to their defaults. This is my reset color. So now I can go to High-Con, Rec 709, and reset color. Great. So let's leave that at Rec 709 though, and hit save, or OK, which saves all of those. Why in the image preparation setup did I want color and filtering related? These are the levels. That's going to be your color settings. But if you look in filtering, there's a little noise reduce. And you've also got blur and high pass. Like you can set up a high pass filter if you wanted to, if you had like a flickering light in your scene and you wanted to make a feature that you could track more easily. That's useful for that. So I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to hit P again to bring up the image preparation setup. And you see this footage is kind of grainy. So, and you can see the edge detail here. But if I wanted to remove some of that grain, then I can just tweak the noise reduce. And you'll notice that it blurs the grain, but it maintains the edge detail. You don't want to go too high on this, otherwise it'll start blurring everything. It tries to maintain the edge detail, and it does a fair job, but Setting it to values above 1, I find personally doesn't work great. You just saw me do something I never do. I just used an adjective to modify a verb. That's terrible. It doesn't work greatly. It doesn't work that well. Anyway, okay. Okay, so anyway, this is why you use filtering as part of your image preset. So again, let's go to new preset. Color and blur related are all you want, and it will save that value with your preset once you hit the OK button. How do we get the error down a bit? You saw when I hit run auto place, that helped a lot, but what I want to do is I want to make the auto tracking semi-manual. So I'm not going to stick around in the summary panel. I'm going to go to the features tab and I'm going to hit this advanced button. I'm going to turn on auto reblip so you can see what happens as soon as I start twiddling with the knobs. And you see here as I move the small value up and down, you can see what SynthEyes sees and what features it's detecting when you set these values to small, this is measured in pixels. So I can turn up big and you can see the big features are the larger square dots. And if you want to know what SynthEyes is doing under the hood, well, set the camera view type to small, and then you can make adjustments here. And as you turn small up, you're going to notice, hey, well, it's just blurring the grayscale values of the image. Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. So let's set that. It was originally 715. 715 are like good values-ish for something like a 1K plate or like 1080p. Let's go to, let's double those values, roughly. So let's set it to 16 and 7 and 15, 32, 16 and 32. I find that this maximum tracker count, if you're working on a very long shot, like a 300 frame shot, I would probably set the minimum tracker count to closer to 300. This shot is about 125 frames, something in there. That's okay, but we're gonna do a couple of passes. So on our first one, let's set this back to normal and go blips all frames. And you'll notice this is part of the process of the auto tracking. You'll notice that when SynthEyes does auto tracking, it'll do the blips all frames, and then it will automatically peel the blips, which we're going to do right now. Peel all. And you see that SynthEyes selected a number of trackers that it's going to use for tracking. So the blips are not trackers. You've seen that in maybe one of my other videos. These are the trackers, and it's selected some of those blips. So let's go back to the Advanced tab, and I'm going to change this to, let's get some more high frequency detail in there. I'm going to actually back this up a bit. I'm going to set this to 12 and 24 and say blips all frames. And peel all, and you'll notice it picked up a few more features there. And I'm going to do one more pass. Crazy. Advanced. It was 16 and 32. Let's set it to 20 and 38. I know that sounds nuts, but 38 as a percentage of a 4K plate is, you know, cut that in half. Was that 19? That would be in a size of 19 pixels on a 1920 by 1080 plate. So, all right. And I'm gonna go blips all frames. Oh, more, build bar. Time for more coffee. Okay. Great. And peel all. And we get even more features in some of the lower frequency areas. All right, let's go to the tracker panel. And we'll see now we have far more trackers. In fact, one of the first things I regularly do when I do any manual tracking is I set this to camera and graphs. And if you scroll the camera and graphs, you can see active trackers here. We've got about 100 active trackers on every frame. So I like that. That's cool. SynthEyes can handle that. That's not an overabundance. You'll also notice, because we were resetting the small and big sizes, that we don't have a lot of duplicate trackers. Sometimes you'll see like a smaller feature or a tracker where the size of small was set to like 8 and then you set it to 16. It'll sometimes pick up the same feature, but that didn't happen so much here. Okay, and now we're gonna go to the solver and we're going to hit go. So this was semi-automatic tracking. And if you look here at our point cloud, you can see, hey, look, we have a nice, kind of ground surface that you can see this like valley of Buddhas that we're walking through. We see that we're kind of an angle, but I mean, aside from alignment, this looks pretty great. And I can change all that. I can say, go in here and hit hold and rotate the entire solution so that it's more like the world we were walking through. Okay, back in the solver panel. So let's take a look. Our solution now is much worse than it was before. So I'm going to do tracker cleanup, just like we did before, but we're going to do it manually. So track cleanup trackers. The only thing I'm going to change here is I'm going to turn bad frames to on, which means that there are some trackers where the error is low and then all of a sudden it'll jump and spike, and it'll keep the tracker, but it'll kill the high error frames. So I'm going to hit fix, and we're going to go to refine, and we're going to hit go. And hey, there we go. So now our error is 1.15 pixels. But the beautiful thing is that the error histogram down here is a lot more normalized. And it's not like really low error, huge spike, really low error, huge spike. So that's good. That's much, much better. And you'll notice that like some of the like really distant trackers, there was one that was way off in the distance. It killed that tracker because it didn't like it. And you also notice, you see this circle around here? What's that circle? Well, you might already know, but that in view, you can see show tracker radar. View show tracker radar. And then you'll see the radar is basically the difference between the 3D point location, that little X, and the 2D tracker center in 2D space being compared. And when they move out of position to one another, you'll see that little ring grow. And so you can see your highest error trackers. During typically motion blur sections, like big bouncy motion blur, and that's really where the error is going to jump on auto tracking. All right, so what do we do now? I'm going to run the tracker cleanup again. Madness. And then I'm going to hit go again on the refine. Oh, look at that. It's even better. And I'm going to do it one more time. Here's why I can do that, by the way. I can do that because I ran 3 passes of blip detection, peel, blip detection, peel, blip detection, peel, and every time I did it, I was adding a maximum tracker count of 120. So what is that? 360 trackers by the end of the whole operation. And you can see that in, if we go to the floating graph editor. Okay, let's shrink the window a little bit. And I'll scroll down here, and we got 360 trackers at the end. Many of those trackers have been blown away. Those were the trackers that were getting hammered on by the cleanup trackers script. So that's good. That's why we can do that. We can just go through a number of passes and clean this result up and get better results. So going back to the solver room, tracker cleanup trackers one more time. Fix and go. Okay. And now I feel like I can deliver the shot to the client, because I always want my error to be below 1 pixel. I'm not going to go into exporting shots because that has to export a shot, I've got a multi-step process for QC before a client ever sees it. Me, over here, 0 kickbacks. Never get a shot kicked back because of the QC process, which you really need if you're going to deliver tracking in whatever software you're using for tracking. If you don't have a QC process and it's not bulletproof, your client should have hired me. Anyway, okay, that's it. So if you have any questions, I'm going to end this tutorial the way that every tutorial I now see on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will get to those questions, and then I'll see you in the next tutorial. And thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon, I hope.